Hello guys, welcome back to my lessons. Today we're going to talk about endocrine gland, endocrine system part 2. So in the previous lesson we talked about pituitary gland, we talked about what are glands, what are hormones, what are endocrine glands, what are exocrine glands, the functions of the hormones that are secreted by pituitary gland, and we also talked about what are glands and what the questions that you should put in mind, the things that you should put in mind before going into an exam. So today we're talking about 3 glands. We're talking about hypothalamus, ovaries, and testes. By the end of this lesson, we would have done 4 glands in total. So we're starting with the simple glands, and then we'll go to thyroid gland, adrenal glands, and pancreas. Right, we'll be left with 3 glands to do. So let's look at ovaries and testes, and then finally we'll look at hypothalamus. So ovaries are only found in females. These are they secrete what we call reproductive hormones. It secretes estrogen and progesterone. Remember, I told you that you need to know the function of the glands is to secrete and to make hormones. And I said you also need to know the function of the hormones that are secreted by the glands. So estrogen stimulates puberty in females. It promotes thickening of the endometrium. So if you need to know more about estrogen and puberty in females, you need to go to the topic of reproduction. But from this chapter, the only thing they can ask you from this is to the function of ovary, or what secretes estrogen and progesterone. You should know that it's ovary. And they can also ask you the function of estrogen and progesterone. So the function of progesterone is that it promotes the thickening of the endometrium, and it also maintains pregnancy. So let's look at the testes. The testes is also a gland which secrete reproductive hormone, which is testosterone only. What's the function of the hormone testosterone? Testosterone stimulates the maturation of the sperm cells. It also stimulates puberty in males. If you need to know more about maturation of sperm cells, you need to go to the topic of reproduction. But from this topic, they can only ask you the function of testosterone as well as the function of the testes, or what secretes the testosterone. You know that it's the gland called the testes. You should also know where the testes and the ovaries are located in the human body. So now let's look at the gland hypothalamus. So what is hypothalamus? Now we're entering what we call homeostasis. Homeostasis and what we call negative feedback mechanism. So homeostasis is the process of maintaining a constant internal environment. A negative feedback mechanism it operates in the human body to detect the changes or imbalances and to restore the balance, right? For an example, let's look at water, the water level in your body. If your body only needs 7 liters, for an example, I'm just making an example, I'm not saying your body needs 7 liters. If the homeostatic level of the water in your body should be 7 liters, and the water goes above the 7 liters, perhaps 8 liters, now they are no longer at its, the water level is not at its homeostatic level. And what will happen? What will happen is negative feedback mechanism. What will it do? It will detect the changes, or it will detect the imbalances with the water level, and it will restore the balance. It will make sure that it actually takes the water to its homeostatic level, which is 7 liters, right? So homeostasis is the process of maintaining constant internal environment. They can ask you in biological terms, or they can just ask you to define homeostasis. They can also ask you to define negative feedback mechanism, or they can ask you in the biological terms. So now, what does this hormones and glands, endocrine gland has to do with homeostasis and negative feedback mechanism? So let's look at hypothalamus as a gland. It secretes a hormone called ADH, which is antidiuretic hormone. It targets an organ in the body, which is the kidney. So hypothalamus, ADH, it controls the concentration of water in the blood. So the hormone ADH, which is secreted by the gland hypothalamus, controls the concentration of water in the blood, right? So what happens if the blood has less water than normal? So the hypothalamus is going to be stimulated. It will send the impulses to the pituitary gland to secrete more ADH. Apparently, ADH is secreted by pituitary gland. Please just take it as it is here. ADH travels in the bloodstream to the kidneys. ADH increases the permeability of the collecting ducts and the distal covulated tubules of the kidney. More water is reabsorbed and passed to the surrounding blood vessels. The water level in the blood returns back to normal. So as you can see, here we talked about hypothalamus, pituitary gland. We also talked about the hormone ADH, right? So when the blood has less water, the ADH will be secreted. More ADH will be secreted. Please know this by heart. They will ask you to describe what happens when the water in the blood is less. Know that you're going to talk about hypothalamus, you're going to talk about pituitary gland, you're going to talk about a hormone ADH, right? And the kidneys. Yeah. So let's look at what happens when the blood has more water than normal. The hypothalamus is stimulated again and sends impulses to the pituitary gland to stop secreting ADH. It means to secrete less ADH means more ADH, more water, less ADH, less water. No ADH or less ADH travels in the blood to the kidneys. The collecting ducts and the distal covulated tubules of the kidney become less permeable to water. The less water is reabsorbed and passed to the surrounding blood vessels. More water is now lost, meaning you're going to urinate a lot, or it will be lost in another way. The water level in the blood will return back to normal. You need to know this by heart because they might say describe this for perhaps 5 marks or more than that. So you need to know what happens when the blood, when there's less water in the blood, what happens when there's more water in the blood than normal.